My hair is terrible, Nancy.
Your hair is terrible. Well, maybe your hair looks terrible because mine looks so amazing.
Yeah, that could be it.
Hi, we're early because
We're checking to see if
no
it
one's here and
works.
that's fine. So we're just talking.
Yeah.
I had my hair cut last night by one of my daughter's best friends and basically my adopted son, Blake, who is a hair cutter to the fancy people like Gwyneth Paltrow and anything. Anyway, I just had him and his girlfriend over for dinner and he gave me a haircut, which should I just show them a little
Yeah,
bit?
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. Now that's pretty good.
Pretty good. It's got some like Olivia Newton-John layers
It feels
going on.
it feels like 69 rather than 71.
Does it?
Yeah,
I don't know. I
maybe
wouldn't know what 69 means. But
1969.
anyway, hi everybody.
Boots. I'm thinking like boots.
Your boots. Okay. Hi. We have not been in this studio for a very long
How
time.
long's it been?
Oh my god, more 2 months?
Weren't we
So,
supposed to do this every week?
yeah, well, okay. Yes. And starting today. No, there's been a lot of reasons. I mean, I went off to Kansas on a story, went off to Portland on a story. You were super busy with work and doing special projects. And now this little studio of ours, you can't see behind the curtain, but it's also a bedroom. I just had the amazing people that took me in when I went to Ukraine. They were here for 5 days. Oksana and her two daughters, and now I've got Molly Lewis, this world class whistler, who's staying here, and then Ken Lane is getting here next week. So the studio is. I mean, it's a living thing. It is.
Diddly little do.
Do. So,
A little slow.
we're super glad to be here, even talking about slow. Why don't you just fill in for the people how slow I am?
Nancy's a bit droopy. She's a bit droopy. She wants to apologize that although she doesn't need to, that she's going to be like snotty and gross
Yeah,
throughout this.
yeah,
Um,
sneezing. Yeah.
Sneezing. Although the it's like yawning and sneezing when you're actually on television, it never happens, right? Because you're uh, actually this relates to crying, I think in some weird way,
All right.
which is our subject. But no, there's a because people sometimes worry about this. You know how like sometimes you yawn uncontrollably. Like for me, if
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah, yeah,
driving at 3:30 in the afternoon after driving
yeah,
a
yeah.
long time and the sun's in my face, I will just no matter what the
Right.
situation is, I'll yawn my face off,
Yep.
and you'll think there's no way I can stop the yawning. The yawning is going to last forever. If you go on TV like that, or if you're just
Yeah.
like sneezing, it'll stop because some kind of adrenaline shoots through you because like
Right.
I can't,
No,
and your
you got to
body.
be on guard. You can't. I remember reading about how like and I think they were talking about deer. Like if a deer is gonna like give birth in the forest, but some danger comes, the body will shut down. Like the labor will stop because you have to be prepared,
Really,
which is very much like going on TV. I think
it's the same thing.
giving birth in the forest. Yeah. So no, yeah, I have whatever stupid thing is going around New York. It's kind of like a flu. It's weird. I used to tell you, it's kind of like a slow roller coaster. You feel bad. You feel okay. You feel bad. Yes. Anyway, so if I'm
Half of New York
yeah.
is. I mean,
So
the kids went back to school, so
yeah,
everyone's
so we're
droopy.
all
Hi,
set.
Norm. Good morning from the left coast. Good morning to you.
Hello, everybody. We're actually super glad to be here, and we will try now that it's fall and all the summer traveling is over, except for Israel. We will try to get in here once a week because we enjoy it, and also because palomamedia.com, I think we announced this, but we're kind of bad about it. We had a redo over at the website. It looks so cute, Matt.
It's very
It
purple
looks
and pink,
it's
and
really
it's
cute.
nice.
So we want to just like have some nice content over there. So that'll be there. But we are here today to talk about some beautiful media that's been happening. Do you want to maybe start us off with
Yeah. So basically, this is a competition.
yes.
We're going to see who is going to cry first, and we're almost positive that it's Nancy.
Yeah.
Because like yawning and sneezing, I only cry when there's on an airplane watching a movie, which we're going to get to. Or because I'm a middle-aged man experiencing menopause, when I'm playing the guitar and singing my friends' songs.
Yes.
That gets me a little verklempt.
It's beautiful.
Not going to lie, but since we're doing this live here, I'm having the TV response, and I'm not going to choke up when talking about the documentary that both Nancy and I watched recently, called "Long Promised Road" about Brian Wilson, which had me absolutely emptying buckets out of my eyeballs on an airplane coming from California. It's like
After the mayor
convulsing.
after the mayor show.
Mar, we call
Mar,
him Mar.
I'm sorry.
John Mayer is the
Yeah, yeah, that's what Sarah Helpless said to me too. She said,
white boy blues
yeah,
player.
yeah, yeah.
Bill
Camille's favorite.
Maher.
Mar. Okay.
is the
Right.
political comedian. Anyways, so we'll get to that because it's cry worthy and beautiful and interesting. But
You're gonna do this to me, aren't you?
the lead
Okay.
is that last night
Last night.
on the television, there's this great show that wins all the awards and people love it. That I've seen at least in 5 minute chunks twice, and it's fantastic. Um,
We watched one whole episode, I think. I think we watched the fir anyway, doesn't
it doesn't
matter.
matter. Called Reservation Dogs. That Nancy's daughter has been working on as a set
She's the set decorator,
decorator.
the assistant set decorator.
And so, which is fine, and it's great, and it's a wonderful thing, and Nancy will talk about that. But last night's episode, because of a fluke, because of COVID, ultimately, right?
Yes, because of COVID.
She had to fill in at the last minute for an actress who is playing a spirit that comes down and visits a character in a jail cell. So last night, Nancy watched her daughter on television and got super verklempt, and so to talk about seeing Tava on TV.
I will, but I'm gonna give a little backstory. I
Yeah.
may have done this before. I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself. So, this show, Reservation Dogs, it premiered a couple years ago. It was created by a guy named Sterling Harjo. Harjo is a very common Creek Muskogee last name. My daughter is half Creek. Okay, it was a friend of Tava's who was going on as the set decorator, someone she'd worked with 10 years before, that said, "Hey, I'm doing this show, and it's native stuff. I thought maybe you'd be interested." Meanwhile, my daughter is not a set decorator. It's not what she does, but she's done some film stuff. So she said to her friend, "Oh, okay, I'll do it. Where is it going to be?" "Oh, it's filming in Okmulgee, Oklahoma." My daughter's like, "That's where my dad grew up." Okay, Okmulgee is not New York City. It is like a little small town in Oklahoma outside of Tulsa. So my daughter signs on to do it. And she finds out that the creator of this show is a guy named Sterling Harjo. He's one of the creators, along with uh Waititi, the guy that did
Mm-hmm.
anyway,
Yeah.
whatever. We'll put links. You know what I'm
Brain fog.
talking about. Yeah. Yeah, I get a pass. So it turns out that Sterling Harjo's mother and Tava's late father, Tim Sampson, were prom king and queen when they were at Indian boarding school in the 1970s. Okay, so it's already like, okay, you're cis. Now, also, I'm not going to go into a big spiel about the native world and the cousins and everybody and this and that. It's just a beautiful thing. The show is amazing. But one of the reasons it's also freaking so amazing is because Tava's grandfather, who starred as the big chief in Chief Brompton in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and then her father did it on Broadway later. Will Sampson, as soon as he became an actor, which he wasn't, he was like a lineman and an artist, and he'd been a Navy SEAL, but he got tapped to do this part in Cuckoo's Nest, which is a whole nother story that I've written about. We'll put a link. He fought so damn hard to have it be the case that Indians didn't just have to play Indians, yeah, noble savage, yeah, war pal, blah, 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 scalping. Like, can't we just be a cop? Can't we just be a dental assistant, or whatever? And it was so difficult. And it was pushing a rock up the hill, pushing a rock up the hill that Tava's dad was still doing in the 90s and the 2000s. Things did start to change. You did have some natives like Northern Exposure. Tava's dad had a recurring role on Northern Exposure. Okay. However, in 2021, you get Reservation Dogs, which is a whole nother world. It is natives as natives are, with their humor and just like everything, the thing that is all the DNA. And I can say this only because I've been around the native world for 35 years, and it was so moving and so funny and so real, and it's great. Okay, so now you got the backstory.
And
Top
I'll interject just to say that Nancy has gone down there at least twice.
3 times.
Three times.
I visited the set and hung out with Tava while she's working. Okay, great. So Tava's like, also another thing, Tava's dad died in 2019. He's native, her connections to the native world, they completely got amplified more than they ever were, because she was now around her people and her aunties. And it was it was like a homecoming to a home she'd actually never been in. It's just been important to her, important to the family, but I'm not trying to make too much of it. It's just been a super good thing. Okay. So now it's season 2 of Reservation Dogs. And Sterling Harjo is like, "Hey, cuz," to Tavi, "listen, we're gonna do a scene in a prison, girls' prison, women's prison. And as an homage to your grandpa, we're gonna have you be one of the they're gonna be playing basketball, because they're playing basketball outside. And we're gonna have you in a prison jumpsuit, your name's Samson on it. We'll have you make a basket. It'll be an homage to your grandpa."
Which is, for those who
Right.
have forgotten, this is a crucial moment in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, where the character by Jack Nicholson, the inmates are playing the prison guards in basketball, and Chief, played by Tava's grandfather, who is playing deaf mute, right?
And it's kinda standing on the sidelines, not doing
And
anything,
it's about
right?
100
Yeah.
feet tall,
Yeah.
anyways.
Yeah.
Uh,
6'8",
uh, uh,
6'7".
and Jack Nicholson's like, shoot, Chief, shoot, Chief,
"Put it in the basket,
put it in the
Chief! Put it in
basket,
the basket!"
and he does, and it like becomes this huge moment of
Yeah.
triumph in the movie. So
Yeah.
they're doing an
So,
homage.
they're gonna do an homage, and that's great. Except that the day or 2 days before they're gonna shoot, the actress that is going to actually play, like, a big speaking part in episode 9, season 2, Reservation Dogs, comes down with COVID. So she cannot come. So Sterling turns to Tava and goes, "You're up, sis." Tava's like, "What?" Tava, first of all, who never wants this, she never wants the spotlight. She never wants the camera on her. She's never acted. She's like, "No." He's like, "No, you're doing it."
Even the time she's like been accidentally on the cover of
Vogue.
Italian
Yeah,
Vogue,
she was on the cover of
it
Italian.
wasn't like she went out
No, she
trying to
did.
be the
She
cover
didn't.
of Italian Vogue.
Look, okay, there are some people that are like, "Pick me, pick me, pick me." That would be me. Me, 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 me. And she's just like, "I don't want any of this." And of course, they're like, "Yeah, you." So they Tava does it, and
She was so nervous beforehand.
oh my god, like
Yeah,
gonna vomit.
I actually talked to her.
Did you try to
Remember,
talk her off
I
the
think I
ledge?
was here, and she was talking to you about it because she didn't want to do it.
No,
Did not want to.
not in a way like, "I don't wanna do that." Mad, just like, absolutely no. And Sterling's like, "Yeah, you doing it." Anyway, it was on last night. Uh, it was it was how do I say this? I said to her today, I was like, "You were so," I mean, besides being amazing and magical and on all this, and I, not just me saying this, Michael Moynihan agreed with me and you did it, everybody has seen it, it's like, "It's amazing." She had this impishness, and she said, "Mom, it's funny you said that because when we finished the scene, the actress she's doing it with, who's Lily, whose last name I'm forgetting, but she stars in Killers of the Flower Moon, okay? That's about to come out, and that's gonna blow up." After they finished the scene, she said to Tava, "You were so impish." There was this beautiful thing that she was able to transmit that is very much of her people, of her family, that was so right for it, and I can't believe I'm not crying yet.
You're doing good.
I will. I cried 14 buckets of tears last night, and the reason I did it is not just because it's my kid. It's because for so freaking many decades, her grandfather and her father and every other native actor, everybody has been trying to push this rock up this hill where we are fucking people here, okay? And we're here, we live here, and here's our life, and here's all these other connectors, and I'm gonna give it to you in this way that's sweet and funny. And she was part of it, and I was weeping my eyes out. Meanwhile, I hear Will and Tim saying to me, "Nanny, it's great. It's all good." And it is all good. And if guys, if you get a chance to watch it, just watch it. I mean, I know I'm biased. I know Matt is to a certain extent, but it's just beautiful. And I have held it together.
You've done a really good job.
I okay.
I've watched bits of it and watched the scene from last night. I'm too incompetent to figure out to make Hulu show me the TV. This is surprising that the technology is not so good for me. We made it here on time. I want to point out
We did. We're
that's
getting better at the YouTube.
we're
Yeah.
really doing it well. No, it calls to mind. Um, uh, I went to a reading at Skylight Books in Los Feliz, neighborhood of Los Angeles, California, where both of us used to live. And with a guy who I had not known before. They used to have great readings, a great bookstore
Yeah, yeah.
on
Great
Vermont.
bookstore.
A guy I didn't know, who you probably know, and you were probably at the reading because this is how our lives have run. But named Sherman Alexie.
I Oh, I may have been
See,
there.
of
Yeah,
course,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't know who he was. Just
Yeah.
you go down to the reading.
Yeah, yeah,
Who's
yeah.
this guy? And he's a great writer, a native guy. I think he had some controversy.
Yeah, it's
Who doesn't?
yeah.
And part of what really stuck out was this kind of insistence of like just agency and normalcy, and like stop treating me like this
This
person, this
Fabergé
thing that
egg
you
or
put into a jar
yeah,
and stare at.
yeah.
Um, and
Very
uh,
good. Yes.
and
Yes.
and just beautiful. I'm very funny too, like the sense
Very
of humor of it.
native, that I know this is a vast generalization, but in my experience, native people are funny. it's not funny like, "Ha ha, Henny Youngman," funny. They tease each other. Teasing is, like, just completely part of the DNA, which I love. I love pe some people don't like to be teased. I love to be teased. And it's just like this sort of just watch it. It's watch the whole series. It's just finishing up, season 2. Sorry, spoiler, there is gonna be seasons 3 and 4. So, just so you
Nice.
know now, I don't know if that's been announced, but I've announced it here now. Uh, and you'll just super enjoy it.
There's a real wry humor,
Definitely.
to the show that's, just a very, like, knowing and surprising. The whole thing just it lives in its own world, and it's not, it's authentic to itself without, like
It
there's not a try hard thing. This
even
is, Chris Woodruff just popped in. We're talking about Reservation Dogs.
Yeah,
It's,
Reservation Dogs
Nancy's
on
daughter,
Hulu. So, it's funny because obviously you knew about Tavi on the show, but Matt hadn't seen it. And, it wasn't that he was resistant to seeing or anything, he just hadn't. And then I think I showed you, we either watched the whole episode or we watched a little bit of it, and you're like, "Oh my god, I didn't know it was gonna be this." I'm like, "That's what I'm telling you,
Yeah.
dude. It's amazing." It's just an amazing show. So,
I want to know how it felt to be so Nancy originally went to, Los Angeles, just a couple years ago, when she was younger, to pursue her acting
to be a movie star.
dreams, to be
Well,
a
look, it wasn't to pursue my acting dreams. It was to
okay.
fulfill my destiny of being a movie star. And speaking of that, if you want to go follow my Substack, which is just
Yeah,
nancyromland.substack.com or Make More Pie, that's also what it's called. I am serializing my book, which is called 40 Bucks and a Dream Stories of Los
it's
Angeles.
great stuff.
I think it's pretty good. Yeah, sorry, did I just say that?
Yep,
But it's good.
great
So
stuff.
anyway, you can read about that. So were you going to ask me like how it felt to see my daughter?
Yeah, so Nancy goes out there and she's gonna be a star
Oh, completely.
and,
Destined, predestined.
she'd worked in the theater, back east and then went out there to do it, and you made your way in a couple movies.
Kind of. Not
Kind of.
really. Not
Kind of, not
really.
really. So you, like, pursued this. Tava fights it, kicking and screaming. It's the
And she's
last
just
thing
like,
that she wants.
"Boink." Well, here's the thing. I am so unremittingly grateful that I did not become a movie star. I mean, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, which is sitting here with you, dude, and
Yeah.
doing a YouTube. Um, no, I'm doing what I should be doing as a writer. It's just you wanna talk about destiny. For Tavi, she's just meant to be doing this a little bit. If you're asking me, like, was there any sort of like, "Oh my god, why does she get to do that?" And I don't, oh my god, no, not
Oh,
at
it's
all.
even I mean,
Not even a little.
it's your kid.
It's
It's, like,
just
great.
amazing. It's just all kinda syncs up. Like, if you just keep trying to do the right next thing, which is what we talk about sometimes, like, how do you know? Like, I don't know, I'll just do the right next thing. I don't know what the 11th thing is, but she's doing it. And she's just finished up a movie called Fancy Dance, where she was the headset decorator. That's starring Lily, the actress that's going to be in Killers of the Flower Moon. So keep an eye on some awesome native projects coming down the pike, which I think is great. Just like more stuff on the buffet table. So
I think you did a really good job. Didn't cry too
I
much.
didn't
Sort of
cry.
a
I
little choke,
little bit,
little
little bit.
cry in your voice, as Neil Diamond taught us
That's
in
right.
Song
And
of Song Blue.
we still have some stuff to talk about. So we might get there.
That's true.
So
So my crying buckets, as mentioned before, was watching the 2021 documentary, "Long Promised Road," about Brian Wilson, in which basically he drives around with a writer from Rolling Stone.
yep.
And I think they managed to get into one diner and
And they
like
go there because Brian Wilson is he's really nervous. He's not nervous is the wrong word. He's scared.
he's scared. And
He's a scared
I'm a little
person.
scared right now.
A little scared right now.
I'm scared. So like they get into one diner and he's just like too scared to do anything except eat a lot of hot fudge sundaes. Um,
So that's his comfort. He's like he can sit in the diner, he can sit in the car. So that's where they do
so it's
the
basically in the
documentary thing.
car, and then the
Yeah.
guy drives around and he like takes him to the old house in Hawthorne, and I think maybe drives by the old studio, certainly old this house he had in Beverly Hills, and then this one in Malibu.
Telling
and
stories,
and he
obviously.
asks him questions about certain songs and certain moments, and then obviously they intersperse found footage of them appearing on TV shows, which is really great. And then the stuff that you really want to see is just working in the studios, making pet sounds,
Yeah.
and hearing some of the vocal performances and this. And I'm curious. Actually, we haven't talked about this. We both saw it, and
Separately. We saw it separately.
separately. Um, But
Sorry.
I was, as I mentioned a little bit on the Reason Roundtable podcast, like, for Beach Boys completists, of which I'm one, yeah, of course you're going to see it because it's Brian Wilson and it's going to have some Beach Boys stuff, and the music is just like incomprehensibly beautiful to me, and the harmonies are so beautiful, and there are moments in it, and this is the part that always gets me in a documentary, particularly if I'm on an airplane, but where you have, in this case, it was Don Was, right? The
Yeah.
great producer who I think owns Blue Note or whatever the jazz label is now. Like he bought it and like he's turned it
Does
into,
he and he has a brother, I think, named David Was?
could be, was not was. Was the
Yes, who I weirdly had some correspondence with a couple of years ago, but anyway, we'll
um
get to that.
And so, they showed Don Was, recently sort of sitting at the big board, listening to God Only Knows and just isolating the things that, the little snippets of it that Brian was doing, and he's overwhelmed. He can't, and this is, I mean, Don Was made, his own documentary, which I need to see, I'm not a good completist, from, like, 1995 called I Just Wasn't Made for
Yeah,
These
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Times,
yeah, yeah.
the record of which I have on cassette, um is pretty good. But like, this isn't Don Was's first rodeo, and he just like he doesn't have the emotions. He can't describe what he's experiencing. I live for those moments. I will watch 2 hours of an absolutely shitty documentary about anything if I get 5 seconds of someone inarticulate in the face of too much overwhelming beauty, and that's when my buckets come out. But you were
But
going to
that's
say.
what God only knows is. I mean, you and I, we have had the conversation about God only knows more than once. I mean, you can be the smartest person in the world, and you can be a Don Was, and you can try to take it apart, like I might do with a recipe or something, but you can't understand. Now
It's actually
I
incomprehensible.
am going to cry because you can't get there. You just don't. I don't. Okay. What is genius? What is something that's been brought down from, like the stars and have dropped into Brian Wilson? I don't know how he does that. And nobody can tell you how he does this. And it doesn't matter how he does this. We just know that he is able to bring forth something that I'm being super inarticulate, that makes us weep, that is transcendent, that is there's nothing more beautiful. Is there a more beautiful song?
I
I mean, there
am
might
not I'm
be.
not
We're not.
sure that there
There are
is.
songs as beautiful, um, and that and then you see the person who okay, this is the part that blew my mind about the documentary. Brian Wilson is still with us, okay? There kind of is no reason why Brian Wilson, if you looked at sort of like you diced up the parts, like that Brian Wilson should still be alive.
He should have died in
Ma
1975.
many years ago. And also not only still be alive, but also the exigencies and the horrors that he had to live through in terms of that Svengali dude, that psychiatrist, and what he kept him imprisoned for 7. I mean, it's bad. And yet, Brian Wilson is still here, and he is still bringing us these songs.
It's,
This is insane.
and he's still, like, mentally ill, and that's,
Fragile, fragile,
it's one of the hard things
fragile.
to watch, and one of the reasons why I'm conflicted about it is that, and I've seen him, perform, Pet Sounds,
So did I.
in,
50th.
I don't know if it was the 50th?
I did in Portland about 6 years ago, 5 years
No, it's
ago.
more like 10, 15 years ago in LA at the, I think it was the Greek. Yeah, it was the Greek. And my wife, Emmanuelle, when we were sitting there, and she actually, cried buckets watching him because it's clear when you're watching him that, that he's not a well person. I mean, I'm not even sure they had his piano turned on at this point, but all these guys who used to be in a band that were kind of contemporaries of friends of mine in LA called Baby Lemonade. There's actually a really good documentary about the remaking of Smile. So Smile is the great long lost record from 1967 that was supposed to be the follow up from Sounds. It became rock music's greatest, like a record that we'll never hear.
But it
Uh,
was released.
it was, yeah.
Yeah.
So like, uh, it was the record that we'll never hear. It wasn't released for a lot of different reasons. Bits of it were released on subsequent to Pet Sounds records, like the songs Cabanescence and Heroes and Villains, that were just like the madness and the genius and the wondrousness were off the charts. But the process clearly broke Brian Wilson, or he broke while the process was happening. Um, uh, Drug use and just the kind of lack of commercial response to Pet Sounds, which he thought was his masterstroke, which it was.
Which it was.
But a lot of anyways, all that was famous, and so at some point in the early aughts, these guys rallied around him, young guys, my age, basically, in Baby Lemonade, and this was happening with a bunch of different musicians around LA at the time. People of my generation, musicians who revered, for instance, Love, the great psychedelic. Sunset Boulevard band, fronted by Arthur Lee. They found Arthur Lee, who was
Yeah.
a schizophrenic living
Yep.
in Los
Yep.
Feliz at the time,
Yep.
and they like, dude, we got to get you back and get you back in fighting shape. And they did. And he started playing in Spaceland and other places. And this happens too. I think even Paul McCartney's drummer is a guy who just comes from that generation, and just like, we are lucky to live among these people. And so there's a documentary about the remaking of Smile. Like Brian Wilson thought, screw it, I'm going to remake Smile from what I remember, because the tapes at that point had been presumed to have been lost, and it couldn't have been done. So he re-recorded Smile based on what he remembered, and a couple of things with this band. There's a documentary about them putting on that show for the first time in London. And with these guys, and just the build up to it, and actually, there is that moment of the incomprehensible, overwhelmed with emotion response, which came from Van Dyke Parks, who
Right.
was the
Right.
lyricist on a lot of that, just like a really arcane weirdo
Oh, I
musician.
saw that. Yeah, I saw that documentary.
Right.
When he's
So
in the
he's
audience?
in the audience
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he lies almost completely flat
Yeah.
with just sort of
Yeah.
his hands like this,
Yeah.
because he can't handle how much emotion is happening through him right
And
now.
those guys were in the documentary. Those guys,
Yes, they've
they were
they've
doing the
they've just
singing,
stuck
the
with him.
yeah.
They stick with this guy who's not there,
I mean, this is
fully not there.
how
That's the beautiful thing.
that's what I'm saying. This like how it's just all beauty and reaching out for this. So there was also, as we spoke about, so it's also you should understand that the documentary is made by a Wilson. I don't know how is the person who made it
Not related, but
not related.
it's executive produced by Brian and his wife,
Okay.
which is a
So
problem,
well, okay. Well,
and his
that's
son.
also interesting. I mean, we when you talk about the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance, it's like, well, he kind of like had the okay over everything. People are like, well, is that really fair? It's like, well, okay, well, it is, and it's awesome. So you should watch it. But this was a very difficult, there were some very, very difficult parts of this documentary. Like really, it was it was grueling to see how willing uh Wilson was to allow you to see how much pain he was in, including something I'm not going to give of a spoiler that he found out in the car. You remember what I'm talking about? They were talking about, "Oh, how is he doing?" And
Oh, right, yeah.
it's just
It's
it,
my problem with
it,
it, there's a little, it's a little self-exploitative somehow. Like, I worry that people, and, he will make money from this, and I want him to make money. By the way, if you haven't listened to it, he released a record about a year and a half ago of just him playing,
yes,
piano,
yes, it's beautiful.
including a bunch of old, Beach Boys songs.
Just
But
turn it on in the mornings when you're making coffee.
just,
It's beautiful.
it's gorgeous. So he's still alive, he's still producing, he's not, an invalid. But there's a scene in, the movie where the Rolling Stone reporter has him listen to his brother Dennis's, solo album, Pacific Ocean Blue, and Brian's like, "Oh, I've never heard that." No way in the world he's never heard that.
Do you think
There's
that?
zero
Okay,
chance
so
that he's never heard
I
this
bought it.
record.
I bought it.
Yeah. And so, like, the to see that, and also, he's answering in a very rote way. "Oh yeah, that's when, me and Dennis, we used to hang out because I do all the acid together." It's kind of great and disarming, but also like he's giving the same kind of rote answers to questions that he's given 1,000 times before, and it just sort of feels like, what are we doing here? Why do
It
we
it
need to see
feels
this?
uh, a little not invasive, a little exposing in a way that sometimes makes you feel a little uncomfortable, or that it's like, do I like, I want some of those moments to be private. I didn't want
Yeah.
him to have to experience, like, this one thing where there was so much pain. I was like, "Oh, no, 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 no." You wanted to just, like, throw a blanket around him and give him some privacy. But I first of all, we've gotta
How do we make that stop?
I don't know.
Oh,
Uh-oh, we've got a troll here.
how do can I
Let's go
click
over
it?
here and, click,
Click,
remove,
remove.
or hide this user.
Let's click that.
Hide
Hide
hide this
user.
okay.
Boom, you're hidden, dude.
Are we? Okay, well, just scroll up because we got a bunch of questions. Let's answer some
Yeah,
questions
yeah.
that are up here.
Um, Andrew Dunbar points out importantly that if a kangaroo mother is being pursued by a predator, she will drop her joey as a distraction,
Oy,
so she
vey.
escapes. Subsequent to that, her forked-shaped uterus starts gestating the embryo her body keeps.
What?
Uh,
Okay.
and uh,
Okay. Well, all right.
Andrew points out that that's pretty metal, if you
Okay.
ask, and
There
that's
we go.
absolutely correct. Norm says, "I loved smoke signals."
Oh, that's Sherman
Alexi.
Alexi.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think maybe that was what he was, touring on back
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
or if
Yeah.
I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah, a funny guy, really funny,
Yeah.
sense of, humor.
Uh,
Andrew comes back in. Episodes of The Fifth Column where Nancy pops up are like, the episodes of Power Rangers where the Green Ranger showed up. It happened intermittently, but those were the best episodes.
Yay!
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. I paid him.
We especially it's enjoyable to us, all of us, I think, when like because we're in here sometimes with the boys, and
In the studio.
we're supposed to do it this week, but we
Yeah.
have a lot of problems as a power
The band.
as a power trio.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when we're in here, Nancy likes to interrupt us with drinks,
Yes.
which is a very
Well, they did it on a video. What you were doing the Twitch the other day,
oh yeah, yeah.
and I came in with like a little tray of drinks and ice, and Michael's like, "Yeah, we're not. This is not sexist at all." Wait,
I'm not sure Michael would acknowledge Michael is to sexism what Camille is to racism. This can't possibly exist.
anyway, I love it.
Mermaids
So,
aren't real. BU Vandal says the Beach Boys did a big reunion tour in 2012. Yes, I didn't see it. I should have. I'm a bad fan, and I'm sorry. And what was great about that tour um, is that about 2/3 the way through, Mike Love fired the band.
yeah.
Swear to God. So they had they had a record came out there, and I'm blanking on the name of it right now. It's pretty good actually. That's why God made the radio, I think is what it's called. It's got a couple of pretty good songs on it. And it did a tour, and but Mike Love owns the Beach Boys as a trademark of band. Mike Love is one of the great villains in
Yeah.
all rock
Yeah.
music
Yeah.
history. I totally appreciate villains because they usually end up being the ones who like have the trains run on time
Yeah, I was
and
gonna say
like
they keep things together, but you hate them. So,
yes,
yeah.
which he Mike Love had to do during the long dark road
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
of Brian over the years, but he fired the reunited Beach Boys, and they had done things like Brian, because he's sentimental, surprisingly for a guy who wrote all those songs. He'd done things like found dudes who were on like the 1963 record or on the in the touring band at the time and hadn't really played with the band since, and like got him and got him on tour. So it was like the big Beach Boys. Everyone who'd ever been involved with the Beach Boys was like there. And Mike Love's like, okay, great. Yeah, class dismissed. And it was sort of and I'm sure they sued each other, as they always do. That so many wonderful lawsuits there. Not as good as my favorite lawsuits in all of rock history, which is um, George Harrison, who's God love him, was a total dick. George Harrison sued Ringo Starr in the 70s for recording one of his songs because he didn't like the version. They just, and this is the guy who wrote "Sue You, Sue Me" blues. Yeah, why wouldn't you do that? But yeah, I didn't see that tour. I wanted to wish, but having seen Brian and the backup band, even on the tour that the Beach Boys were on, they had some of the Brian backup band guys on, and they're carrying a lot of it. I mean, they're carrying the
So,
vocals.
who did I see? I saw it's like about 6 years ago in Portland. It was the 50th anniversary of Pet Sounds. There was Brian on piano and lots of other people, including like a nephew who was doing the vocals that Brian could no longer
Yeah.
do. It was I don't know who was in the band. It was great. If they and, I think he's still at least if you're looking at the documentary, they're still touring
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes. Go see them. I mean, guys, like, if you get an opportunity to, go see them. Years ago, I saw, Leonard Cohen, actually, like, the year before he died, I saw him play. You wanna talk about a moving experience. Holy crap. Just, like, weeping and amazing, and my daughter was living in New York at the time, and he was going to Madison Square Garden. She'd never heard of Leonard Cohen, and I was like, "You're going. You're going with your friend." They were, like, 24 years old, and they went and they were in the audience just weeping. It's like this stuff is transcendent. Just go. If you get a chance, go, even go with your kids. It's worth it. So, dude, we're bumping up against our time.
I wanted to point out an ethic, a rule that my great colleague and fellow Beach Boys head, Brian Doherty, had for a long time. I don't know if he still maintains this because it's a little difficult in our modern era and where he lived, but like it was if an artist of X amount of transcendent like contributions to the world and to the musical arts happens to come within X number of miles where he lives, he will just go see them.
Just go.
He will just go see them. And I realize that that can sound excessive. That's sort of, certainly unaffordable. And at the same time, like, kind of wish I'd seen Paul McCartney. I still haven't seen Paul McCartney, and
Well,
it's
there's time, dude.
maybe.
Uh,
Um,
I
uh,
I'll add one thing to that. I have a rule about that too. If a toddler or a little child offers you a piece of food, take it. I don't care if you're on a diet, take the candy. Take the cookie that they're offering
what
you.
if they just
'Kay, I
put
have
it in
eaten
their
I
butt?
have eaten a piece of gummed banana that a child has offered me. Yes, it's fine. Just do it. Trust me. Sorry.
That's
Okay.
fine.
Okay. I mean,
Okay,
that's what I'm saying. There's a parallel with going to see the band. That's what I'm trying to say here. Okay, just go.
hold on. Let me see if there's any things underneath it. Oh, look, right there.
Oh, there are.
Um, Yoko Ono doesn't fit in that villain archetype, says
Don't
Andrew Dunbar.
I
We
think
talked about her on a
yeah,
previous
we've
episode.
we've
Nancy was
had a
mad at her.
Yoko. Oh, yeah, I'm not having Yoko. Sorry, I'm not.
Norm also asked Matt, "What do you think of Almost Famous?" I conflicted about it. Parts of it I really liked. Obviously, the fact that Tiny Dancer became the rallying cry in the movie is kind of great because I've always hated that
I
song,
love that song.
and I always just sing it to "Hold Me Closer," Tony Danza, and it makes it a lot better. um, but also that was like that's like a real like rock band moment, like the illogic of the falling out and the crashing, and then just like screw it, let's bond over this song. I appreciated that. The writer, what's his face, that's based on, and, yeah, I've always been a bit conflicted about his work, but overall positive, let's say. So that's the answer to that question.
Any announcements for the peeps?
I had something that was related to all of this that was Paloma focused, but now I've forgotten and lost the plot. So sorry. Um, um, yeah,
Okay.
that's fine.
All right.
So yes, we will endeavor to be back on a more weekly, hopefully Tuesday focused.
Tuesdays used to be the day, so we'll try to get back on a
We'll try
Tuesday
to see you
schedule.
next
Try to
Tuesday.
see you next Tuesday.
And get this all in order. But thanks for coming and hanging out. And I think Nancy did pretty good.
I did.
You only
Uh,
credit the Beach Boys. That's pretty good.
yeah. So also, yeah, guys, go over and subscribe to Paloma if you want, or here or wherever. Just subscribe to our stuff, Fifth Column, or my podcast, Smoke 'em if you got 'em. We just dropped another episode today.
Yeah, they've been doing subscriber only bits. It's very good to encourage Nancy and Sarah
Yay!
to kick butt, which they've been doing. It's terrific. And yeah, fifth column
Yep.
reason.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.